how much would it improve the bottom line of your business if more people knew about what you did, they had a chance to fall in love with your product and you and create a relationship with you? I think that in-person events, trade shows, vendor shows, markets, craft fairs, all of that is the number one thing to propel your small business. And today we're going to be talking, I have somebody with me that has been through the trenches with me. We learned from highs and lows, lots of mistakes and trial and error, and we're going to go through 3 critical areas to consider to help elevate your vendor booth experience and hopefully help you with a little bit higher success. So let's jump into it. I'm excited for this week. We are out of the shop, obviously, but we're in Sheridan, Wyoming, getting ready to do an in-person event. We have a big leather trade show, and in driving over here and setting up, we were talking through a lot of the things that we typically talk through going into an event. And when you do an in-person event, there's certain things and keys that can help you be successful with that event. And with me here this week is my lovely, beautiful wife, Marty, one of the best in the business about giving people an experience in that booth. So excited for what we're going to get into.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat about it too.
So we're talking about 3 main things that are going to help lead to success in a booth.
Yeah.
And it's some of the things that we have learned over the years and learned through mistakes and learning from others and just learning through experience. But let's walk through the first kind of big thing that we look at.
Yeah, I actually super love in-person events.
Yeah.
I really feel like it's a good opportunity to get out and meet new people, to interact with people, to have conversations. You really get a great feel for what people are liking or what they're drawn to, which can really help in the future of what to create, what not to create, maybe some things to tweak. And so I really love doing in-person events.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's a big boost in sales for one, for sure, depending on what you're doing. But even more important than that are what we call trickle-down orders.
Yes, because the truth is not every show is a home run in the sales department. And I should say, like, in the cash register transactions, some events we have had really good days, and then other days you're like, ooh, okay, this is a little slow. But what I found, and talking to other people who do a lot of shows, that those are still days that we win, because, like, we were chatting, the trickle down orders, like, we did an event and it was a slower event on a couple of nights, but we had this lady come in and she was really excited to do a hat. However, we didn't have something that fit her. And so it's also an opportunity when you're doing an event to educate people about what you do. If you're making your product, educate them about how you're making the product, or educate about your story, and so they get to feel like they connect with you. But we told her, oh, you could bring your own hat in. So down the road, a couple weeks later, for her birthday, she got all of her girlfriends together and they came to the store and they did a hat with us. She wanted to do her hat, and then we had 2 or 3 other ladies do hats with her. So that was beneficial to do that event.
Yeah, I think the relationship you're able to build with people at an event, because you get to shake hands, talk to them, and they get to feel your passion for what it is you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, and they're going to hold on to that experience, which is our number one thing. We have our notes here that we're going to go on. So our number one, customer experience.
Customer experience. It's huge.
And that breaks down into kind of 3 categories that we look at.
We have the 3 categories. So the first that we are talking about in customer experience is engagement. If you are not engaging people in your booth, what are you doing there? And I'm going to say there is etiquette with this, because you don't want to be, you don't want to be poaching people out of other people's booths. That's not what we're talking about here.
No.
But what we are talking about is you have to remember that this is like your mini square foot, or your 10 by 10 booth is your mini storefront.
Yeah.
So what do you want people to feel when they're walking into your storefront? I will never forget, we were at a show, and later I talked to the person running this booth, and that person had said, oh my gosh, it was so slow for me. And we had a pretty decent show, but I had walked by that booth to use the restroom. Well, I could understand why it was slow for them, because they literally had a table set up in the front, which we're going to get to set up in a minute. They had a table set up. They were sitting behind, they just had stuff thrown out on the table. They were sitting behind the table on their phone, like this. That's not very inviting. Or when you walk by a booth and somebody is like this.
Yeah,
Like
bored out of their mind. And
No.
if you're not excited about being in your booth, how can you expect customers to be excited?
Right.
Right. What do you tell them? What do you tell them?
What do I tell them? I say, fix your face.
Fix your face.
Fix your face. I am sorry, but nobody wants to come into a booth with somebody who is looking like they're bored or they're mad. And I will say to our sweet Lexi, I said that to her this last trade show or the event that we were doing, and she knows. And now I'm like, girl, and she's like, smile. Sometimes, and let's talk about this. If it's slow, sometimes you can get in your head about it. Sometimes you might have money out on the line that you really need to make some sales, right? So the mental part of it, you can't go down that road. And you're there to do a job, and you're there to create an experience for your customers. So we have to stay in that, like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You got to leave everything at home, even if you're having a bad day. You got to find the strength to smile. Yeah. Literally smile. So that is the engagement with people. The second is the environment. Yeah. And I think you can really talk about this.
The environment, I think, is huge. When your idea on selling people something in your booth is you want them to be in a buying mood, right? I mean, at the bottom of the day, we talk marketing and things like that. And whether you're looking at marketing and you want somebody to relate an experience to your business, or you want them to have that experience that makes them want to buy that day, one of the quickest things we can do is change their environment. And think about little things you can do in the show. One big thing that we've done, we did it in Vegas this last year, a show where people are walking a lot of miles during Vegas.
Yeah.
If you've ever been down there during NFR, your feet get to hurting, right? So we got the soft pad floor to put in our booth. So if you've been walking down on concrete and you step in and step on that cushion floor, you're instantly like, oh, God, you feel relief. So you feel relief when you walk into our business, essentially. So it triggers that. A lot of sales is subconscious. If it's somewhere where it's really hot out, is there a spot that you can put a little fan so there's a little bit of a breeze when you walk in your booth? Is it cold? Maybe it's a chilly time. You can put a little fan or a little heater or something like that. So that's just a quick one that I think is just something to be mindful about. And sometimes you might not know until you get to the show and see what that environment's like. So I know we're setting up here. We're in a building, pretty climate controlled. I'm not sure at this point what we're going to do, and that's going to be something we're going to be ready to pivot and act quick on if there's anything we can do to change that environment and enhance that for somebody when they come into our booth.
Here's a good example from this show. The first year you came, the lighting.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It was like going into a cave, right?
It was like a cave, and instantly, like we set up, it was me and a buddy of ours, Jared, here setting up, and we set this thing up. It was a weird setup, and that's a whole nother story. But we were in there, and it was dark and dingy, and it's like, dude, we're going to the store. Like, we went and got some lights and set it up, and instantly it was like, oh, brighten things up, and now it was inviting with that lighting in there. Yeah. So, and that's something we're going to touch on and get down the road here a little bit too.
But a good example of a pivot. Most places have a Walmart or a True Value hardware store or something that we can go to. So, and the last point for the customer experience is show your expertise. So if you're a maker, can you be working on something? We have a friend who does hand beading. So at her shows, especially if it's slow, take the opportunity. And she was working on, just a couple weekends ago, she was working on beading some product. Joe, they'll set up and they'll tool.
It's engaging for
Painting.
people. They
Yeah.
get to see, if you're in the craft business, which a lot of people watching this are, if people see you working on something, it already tells a story for your product, and
Right.
people are putting that together. And maybe you're not a craft business. Maybe you're something that you can have a demonstration of the product doing its thing, or it's something that people can get hands on and try this product. So again, that demonstration, that putting things to life, whether it's creating it or using it.
Right. For us with the hat bar at shows where we take the hat bar, we'll put a hat on and we'll start to kind of craft it and create it. And it's slow. It's not how we would do if we're working with a client, but it starts, some people don't, they want to look and they want to see. And so maybe they'll get the idea of, oh, I get it. Okay, they're putting those hats together, and so they start to see that stuff. And I think for boutiques or people who are buying and selling, putting an outfit together is an art. So having your mannequins that are staged well and put together well, that's showing your expertise, because people, when they see a nice outfit put together, I know at least for me, I'm like, oh, they can think through, oh, I can create that outfit. I can.
They're seeing how it works.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So then number 2 that we have is shopability.
Yes. Shopability is big. First thing that comes to mind for that is layout.
Yeah.
And we've tried different stuff, and
so many layouts.
yeah. And it's a combination too, I think, between you want to try to take as much product and get as much in there, but like me, I'm one of the weird claustrophobic ish type of people shopping. Like, if it's bottlenecked or jammed, or if I can't get in and out real easy, like, cool, might be good stuff, but I ain't checking it out. I'm moving on to the next one,
Yeah. And I think sometimes you don't know until you get there, which for me is hard. I don't like that. I like to mock the booth up. I like to know where my walls are going to be and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes you have to, and I've had to just learn, okay, it's going to be okay. It's going to work out, and we're going to figure it out when we get there.
Yeah.
Be a little bit flexible.
Right.
Yeah.
But making it easy for people to be accessible and
huge.
think to how many people can shop in your space at one time. And sometimes what we'll do is, like, okay, already stand there like you're shopping for this, looking at a hat here. Okay, Lexi, what if you're looking at a belt? Or what if you're trying to check out these hat goodies over here? Like, are you running into each other? Do you feel like somebody's in your way? And we'll just literally walk through it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. The second thing is signage. We've definitely grown and are growing in this, but can they tell who you are? Can they tell how to follow you on social media? Simple things like that. And it doesn't have to be expensive when you get started, because I think, for me, I tend to go to how can we do the thing that is the permanent option. So get the banner from Vistaprint, pay that extra money. But sometimes that's not an option, because we're small businesses and we need to stick within our budgets. So even simple things like printing things out, but tiling them so that they're bigger, and then making sure that they're put together really well, can be a good option.
Yeah. And even signage of explaining how things work too. Are there common questions that you get that just a simple sign would be like, oh, I get it. The hat bar, for example. Pick your hat, pick your goodies, get it styled, little things. And not everybody's going to read. Like, the majority of people probably aren't going to read, but there are those that do, so it's good to have it up there. And again, that comes into where the demonstration thing helps a lot.
Right.
You can say handmade belts all you want, but if you're sitting there working on something, they're like, oh, this stuff's handmade.
Right. Absolutely. And then the third kind of bullet point of shopability is the placement.
Yeah. And we've run into that trying to maximize our space. Like, okay, if we have a small footprint, we can go low, we can go high, and fit a lot of things in. But what's the height of your average person shopping? how high can they reach comfortably and get something off without knocking crap everywhere?
Right.
And, you know, is something just displayed up just right where if they touch it, then more things are falling?
Right.
People don't like that either. You know, they feel bad. Oh gosh, oh sorry, I knocked, and they want to get out of your booth, right? So
Right.
I think that's a big thing. And you ran into at another show about being too low.
We did. It was so we had hat jazz that was almost on the floor, and that was not a good thing because people don't, we don't want to bend over.
Right.
Let's be real.
Well, and you ran into people physically not able to
Yeah.
stand back up.
Yes,
Like,
which you don't want people to fall over in your booth. You don't want, like, things like that. So, or if it being really, really too high, sometimes with hats, we've tried to utilize really tall on the grid because we've had a lot of hats to display, but then you can't get them off. So trying to think about those things. And if people can't get them off and touch them and hold them and put them on or put the purse around them or try the belt on, they're not going to buy, especially in what I've discovered, especially at certain price points. They want to be able to really see them.
yeah, absolutely.
So placement, yeah.
So we've talked about customer experience. We've talked about shopability. The third large topic that we have is visual appeal.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are better at this than others.
It is a
Some
skill.
of us just tend to throw crap up, and I think that can be so much of a maker thing too. Like, you put the time into making this thing, and you see the value in it. You know the value. You've been putting work into this, and then you're like, here it is. Like, you like it, buy it. If not, whatever, you know. But there's a whole art to the visual appeal on it, and I know you've learned a lot on that stuff.
Yeah, we have. And Terry, who works with us, she's so good at this. And so she's taught us a lot about, one of the key things that she really taught us about is layering. And that you can't just have, like Joe was saying, you can't just put your stuff out on the table and just have it all be flat. There needs to be height and depth and dimension to things. Otherwise, it just looks kind of like, meh. Even if you have a $3,000 amazing purse, it doesn't look like a $3,000 amazing purse if it's just kind of like flopped on the table.
Yeah. And let's just set it out there too. You sure can, right? I mean, you look at your average lemonade stand, and they put cups of lemonade flat on a table, and that's where we start.
Right.
But we're talking about keys to level up.
That's
right.
right.
We're looking at those little incremental things. Especially if you're this far in this video, you're somebody who's wanting to excel and improve.
Right.
And that's where these little tweaks come into play.
That's right. And layering can be as simple as a box, or like a crate, or a plant stand, a cake stand.
I've seen you simply use some of the boxes and cases and little things that stuff came in, or things were packed in, or things that you brought to the show. Use those with a sheet over top of them, and it creates layers.
Yeah.
You took your scarf off at one show and
we
used
did.
that as a
We did, because we
thing.
didn't bring enough. And that is another, like,
Get resourceful.
get resourceful. Also, maybe pack a few more boxes than what you think you need, because it looked really flat, and we needed another kind of like stair step for the eye for it to be really visually appealing. And I did. It was cold, and I sacrificed my wild rag so that our booth looked better. So yeah, that is one thing. Lighting. We kind of touched on this for the customer experience, but it also is so important in the visual appeal.
It's funny how even in a well-lit building, or even outside at a day show, you know, you can still make a difference, especially if you get into the dusk hours and stuff too. But we talk about in a building that's well lit, but then you shine that extra light on something, and it does something to the psyche as well, that like, ooh, what's that?
Yeah.
You know, something's worth putting a light on, you know, it's got a spotlight on it.
Yeah. And the example that comes to my mind instantly is the new shelves that we had built for the hats for Vegas. and they really displayed the hats really, really well. But then we literally just put a simple running light under each shelf, like the bottom, so it was shining down on the hats underneath of it. And when you turn that on, it made a huge difference.
Just like, wow.
Yeah, it was really, it caught people's attention when they walked by.
And it's not hard to do either. Like if you can add it to displays that you already had, the things have to be hardwired. Go to your hardware store or a Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace, whatever. They have different little light kit things. That stuff that you're talking about was literally a roll of like under cabinet lights, and they stick on, little pack on there, super easy to do.
Yeah.
I was able to do it and lit up the whole shelf, made it look awesome.
Yeah, that was a huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this was big. This was a big one. Luxury. In the visual appeal, luxury.
How are you displaying your things? Is it literally just stuff laid out on a table? Is it crap in a basket? You can take, $1,000 items, put a handful of them in a basket, and it looks like crap in a basket. Like, honestly, think about what else is displayed that way. Think about when you shop and where you go. When you're at the little inn stand at the, grocery store and stuff's just in a basket, and you already know that's going to be kind of just a grab and go little item. But you get to your higher end stores, one item, this purse, this knife, this belt, this thing has its own little shelf. They're individualized.
Yeah.
It looks better. We've done things like you can take beans, dry beans, put those in something that works really good, like jewelry, that sort of thing.
Right.
But anything, it just elevates it and looks good.
Simple things like, and again, it doesn't have to cost a fortune. Like, we understand being on a tight budget and wanting to make things work. A tablecloth. Are you putting a tablecloth down on the table? That sometimes craft shows or vendor shows don't give you a tablecloth.
Right.
So are you putting a tablecloth down? You can use a black sheet from Walmart. A lot of our backdropping is black sheets from Walmart. And I personally like to get the King flat sheets, and because you can double them up, so you can get more use out of them. So if you're in a smaller space, or if you need a larger one, you can use it for both instances, as I really like. The other thing is show your style. It doesn't have to be black. That was one of the things that I really wanted to talk about, is our colors are black and white and that kind of natural of the leather. But are you a little bit more funky and a little bit more boho, or a little bit more, what's your brand? What are the colors that you like? Think about it from that way, and then how can you level it up? I love vintage. We use a lot of like vintage jewelry cases, books. We use vintage books too, or Western books that have like cool, bindings on them to add that layering height. So that's with our Western brand, but what's your brand? You kind of have to think through that. I've seen really great displays using pictures, printing pictures off from Walmart and then putting them in a nice frame. And sometimes you can get frames for a couple bucks for, 8x10s or... So that's another good way, but remember to layer them and put them at different size heights and mix them in with the product that you do have. That's another good way if you're a small maker and you don't have a lot of stuff.
I was gonna say, one win that, is kind of one little bonus thing to share with you too. And I talked this over with a friend of ours that has a booth, and he didn't have a ton of product, especially come second day, because he does awesome stuff and it was selling out. He's like, man, I don't know what to do here. I'm trying to make my booth look full, but I don't have a ton of product. And we talked about using pictures. Well, he used pictures of his product, right? Take pictures of your products, and then you can have them mixed in with your stuff as your product's full and you have lots of product. But then as things are selling and you still have displays and it still looks really good and full. It gives reference if you're something that you're taking orders on, or even something to tell people this is kind of what we stock. We'll be back in stock soon, whatever
Right.
the case is. But it's
Yeah.
very, very valuable. We did that in Vegas one year.
We did.
We did like the Vista print posters, really cheap to print, but they look cool. They took up space.
Yeah.
Kept it looking full throughout the whole week.
Yeah. So an in-person event, really, I recommend that all makers do them.
Yeah.
All small businesses. It's a great way to get your name out there. It's a great way to meet people, which then turns into trickle-down orders. Try it. We're getting ready to come into a season where there's lots of different, and this is a whole nother video, but different places, farmers markets, all types of things. And then as we start prepping to head into holiday shopping season, start planning now about looking for markets, looking for different opportunities to go set up, and start thinking about these 3 areas that we talked about and how you can implement things that maybe you haven't thought about yet, or how you can level up things that you're already doing. That would be my suggestion.
Absolutely. You think about what you do, you have a passion for what you do. You have knowledge about what you do. And if your customers knew it, they would be buying lots of stuff, right? If they had the passion or understood your passion for it, you can only do so much in an ad or a post or anything like that. Most people that are creating things or running this business aren't necessarily advertising executives. I know we sure aren't either. But if you can get face to face, have that time, talk to people, they have that experience with you, make that relationship. How many places have you been to, or little shops and things where you're like, oh man, I remember Sally at the little pottery shop, so cool.
Yeah.
You know, and you have that story related there. So then when pottery comes up, you're instantly like, oh yeah, we were at this place and we saw this little shop, this gal, it was awesome. You know, that comes back to mind. So yeah, 3 things: customer experience, shopability, visual appeal. Hopefully these tips are gonna help you excel in your next booth experience, and appreciate you guys joining on here for this little impromptu episode. Can't wait to see you guys in the next one.